welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Allie.
And I'm Sarah.
And I am back, people. Did you miss me for the 1 week I wasn't here?
Yes, we very much did. I was in constant communication with you, so I don't really feel like I missed you. We're in constant communication because there was so much happening, including Champions League, which we are about to kick the episode off with. We've got a big one today. We've got Champions League, WSL, and NWSL. We can't just tuck this big piece of news away in the NWSL section because a big piece of news dropped last week. It was actually Wednesday of last week. So the days our episodes come out. So we couldn't cover it last week. We're covering it this week.
Because I'm so glad because I got thoughts.
Boss Nation FC is no longer, although I think it's still their Instagram handle. I'm not sure if they've bought the new one yet. Boss Nation FC is no longer the new NWSL Boston expansion team that will start play, I believe, next year, 2026, will henceforth be known as Boston Legacy FC. Allie, you're laughing.
Because it's equally stupid.
Had you heard that before today?
Yes, I had.
Okay,
Tim, friend of the pod, had dropped it. So
you cannot like it, but to say it's equally stupid is a really big statement.
It is equally as stupid. I'm sorry.
I totally disagree with that.
It's equally as stupid.
Let me talk you through my waves of emotions. So it's Wednesday morning. I open my phone because I have terrible habits, and the first thing I do in the morning is I open my phone. And I open Instagram because, again, I have terrible habits. But I opened it. It was the first thing that popped up on Instagram. And they make you like scroll through a few slides on the carousel to get to what the actual name is. So I'm like, I don't care what all of this stuff says before. Get to the name. Read Boston Legacy. And my first reaction was just disappointment because I wanted something kind of like eccentric, something fun, something that I felt like wasn't bland. And like, don't get me wrong, Boss Nation is certainly not bland, but it was like it was not bland in the wrong way. It felt safe. It still is much, much better. Like my initial reaction, if I were to sum it up, is better, still not great. And since then, I will say I have been on a journey of coming to kind of accept and dare I say almost appreciate it. And here, let me tell you why.
Please do. Please try and convince me to like this because it's not working so far.
Because the idea of creating your own legacy and that you can do that, I think is really pertinent in women's sports and women's soccer. And I kind of love the callback to that.
That is such a reach.
It's definitely not a reach. If you read what they literally wrote when they put out the name, it's not a reach.
It is a reach. Like I get that's what they're saying, but mate, it sounds like AI wrote it. Like no, like they put it into ChatGPT, come up with a name for a team, and that's what they've got. So it went into our group chat.
Hold on though. The first card says, it's a great day to start a new legacy, to write a new chapter and build something bigger than ourselves.
That's a reach. That is a reach. That is such a marketing ploy.
Also,
reach.
Confirmed that the handle is still Boss Nation FC, which is kind of funny to me.
And also the title is still Coming Soon FC. So their social media's really not been on it. So it got dropped into the group chat. And first off, it just made me feel old because Tim didn't get half of my references. But mainly, I'm like looking at it and it's cool. And I am going to age myself because it's like Boston Legacy. I automatically want to say Boston Legal, which was a TV show in the early noughts. It was a David E. Kelly show and Boston Public. It doesn't scream football team to me. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Tim was like, well, it's no better than the KC Current. I was like, no.
That's actually kind of true. Because it's like when when Casey named their team the Current, we were like, you're literally landlocked. Like, what's going on here?
see, you went that way. I went electricity. Like, electric current. Like, power, spark. Like, that for me sounds like a sports team. Boston Legacy sounds like a walking tour around Boston.
Hey, to each their own. I did put out a poll on social media, and I would say the overwhelming majority was it's better than Boss Nation, but I still don't love it. I would say that was the overwhelming majority.
I can go with that. I just think, man, I don't know. Maybe I don't get on board with American sports teams because we just name our teams after the place where they're from. And that's it. That's it. That's how we, and I have no issue with that. But yeah, but unfortunately we're not going to get another do-over, so it will be.
No, we're not getting. Can you imagine? Not for another 10 years or so. We might get one in 10 years, but for now it's Boston legacy. I do want to know if you're literally you live in Boston or you're from Boston, you identify with Boston, and you're a women's soccer fan. Please reach out to us. Send us a DM and tell us how you feel, because I feel like I see a lot of opinions, but I don't know how Bostonians feel about it.
Yeah. And what would you call it?
I did see Boston Coven floating around, but then I saw some people being like, whoa, that's way too. If you're saying Boston Coven, then you obviously don't know the history. And I was just I thought Coven was cool because it's witches and women, but I get it. Literally women were burned at the stake, so maybe let's not call it back to that.
No, I was trying to think of something to do with, because obviously the Boston Tea Party, but then obviously Tea Party's now got a connotation that we can't use. But
this is why Legacy felt safe, because it's how do we not make waves?
Rebels,
which is fine,
or something. I don't know.
You know what? It's fine. But I do think there's an appetite in women's sports for the names to be kind of more daring and eccentric. But then we got one, and we forced them to change it. So I don't know, maybe it's a lose-lose situation for everybody. Either way, it's Boston Legacy FC, everybody. Now let's get into it. We have to kick it off with Champions League, because the second leg of the quarterfinals happened last week, and boy, did 2 out of 4 games really bring it, Allie.
I would say all of them did, but you don't agree with me, so...
Are you kidding me? All right, so let's kick it off, because I know we both agree that the Arsenal Real Madrid and the Chelsea City games brought it. We'll come on to those in a second. You were at the Barcelona Wolfsburg game.
Yes, I was.
And we have a disagreement that you think that was a good game. I think it was a bore fest. But you can really honestly tell me that you think that Lyon Bayern was also a good game?
It started off as a good game, because obviously Bayern got their goal back and it was game on. And then obviously they got battered. But for a moment, I was like, yes, game on.
For 13 minutes.
For 13 minutes, I was like, game on. And then, yeah. Poor
All right, so let's
Bayern.
talk about it, because you were in Barcelona and you were in a very small stadium. I did not realize it was at such a small stadium. 6,000 person capacity. It was the Cruyff, I forget the name, Cruyff Stadium.
Yeah, it's the Johan Cruyff, who is a very famous Barcelona player, who's also a very famous Dutch player. And it was the smaller stadium. But mate, what an atmosphere that made. This is genuinely, as a neutral, was one of the best football games I've ever been to, because Barcelona get behind their team, man. And atmosphere wise, it was fantastic. So they do this really cool thing. So they'll do the squad announcement at the very beginning, and the announcer will say the first name of the player, and then the crowd shout the surname into this call and response thing, which is so cool and really gets everybody hyped up. And they've got their song that they sing as the players come out, which is all in Spanish, so don't ask me what it said, because I don't know. So I'm just sat there with my beer, because you can drink in the stadium. That was another fun thing for me.
I saw you posted that on Instagram, and I was like, I always forget that you guys literally can't sit in a seat with a beer. It's crazy to me.
Nope. Men ruin that for us, but no.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then again, when players score, the announcer does the first name, and then they scream the surname, and it was the atmosphere, and they didn't stop singing. And I did feel a bit sorry, because Wolfsburg had about 20 fans in a corner, and I was like, oh, I've been one of those.
Yeah. You chose to be the homer, right? You were like, I gotta root for Barcelona.
Yeah,
okay,
I was in the Barcelona end. I was right behind the goal. It was a cracking see. I was behind the goal when the 2 free kicks at the second half. I was right there.
Wow, those were some.
There were some beautiful goals. So I think I might be biased in the fact that me saying it was a great game, because I was there. And the atmosphere was fantastic and incredible. And we'll get onto it when we talk about the semi-finals, because there's been a little bit of controversy. But I thought it was fantastic.
I totally believe you that it was a great game to be at in person. As a neutral, watching from home, what a freaking snooze fest that was. As a neutral, you don't want to blow out. You want something tight. And it was, but I at least anticipated that. Might I just add, I think all of my predictions were literally completely accurate. No, not completely. I did say extra time in some of them. But yeah, Barcelona came back with a vengeance because they lost El Clasico to Real Madrid the weekend before, like literally 3-4 days before. And it was a question of how is Real Madrid going to respond and how is Barcelona going to respond? And we knew how Barcelona was going to respond, which was, I'm going to destroy anybody in my path. And that's exactly what they did to Wolfsburg.
They made Wolfsburg look like a pub team. They made Wolfsburg look like an amateur team. Like,
it was a little embarrassing. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, if you're Wolfsburg, man, that weren't good. That were not good.
Yeah, it'll probably go down as probably one of the worst Champions League performances in Wolfsburg women's football, period.
I would agree.
Which is a very storied history, Wolfsburg Champions League women's football. Yeah.
Yeah. 10-2 on aggregate, man. 10-2 on aggregate. That's rough.
Crazy. So that parlays us very nicely into talking about Real Madrid. And let's lump these two together because we had a 2-0 aggregate score for both of these games. Real Madrid was going into the Emirates up 2-0 in aggregate. And on the Chelsea City side, City were going into Stamford Bridge up 2-0 in aggregate. And both Chelsea and Arsenal pulled out 3-0 victories to make the aggregate 3-2 and get to the semifinals. It was wild, Allie. Like, I truly was losing my mind. And to be fair, Arsenal, it could have been more. There were, I think Alessia Russo had at least two. I know it was at least two goals called offside.
She had two in the back of the net called offside.
One of them deservedly so. One of them I was like, doesn't matter. What a performance from both of these teams. And we just need to talk about it.
Yeah, you know, we talked about it when we were talking about whether you'd want to be the home team in the first leg or the second leg. And we both agreed that the second leg was better because if you're down, you've got that advantage because you've got more fans there geeing you on. And if you're already up, then you're more likely to keep up with that. And yeah, they turned around and did it. And like, let's talk about Arsenal first because that was the first game chronologically. They came out wanting it and like Real gave them a good first 45 minutes.
Yes, I was very nervous at halftime because if you're Arsenal and you're down 2-0 in aggregate, you want to come out and you want to get one back immediately, right? You want to make this a 2-1 aggregate going into halftime. And Arsenal played great in the first half.
They were phenomenal.
But there was nothing to show for it. There were some, it was incredible crosses coming from Chloe Kelly, who was in truly fine form in that game. But nobody on the end of it. One, maybe two players in the box in every single cross and nothing to do. I think they had maybe one shot on goal in the first half, despite playing a fantastic game. And I was genuinely concerned at halftime because that I was just like, that's not good enough.
Yeah, and also it was defensively strong from Real because you felt like they were going to play a bit, not timid as such, but they didn't want to rock the boat because they already had the 2-goal advantage. So if they could keep Arsenal out, then they were happy. And you felt that in the first half. Cue the second half.
Oof. And cue Alessia Russo. My goodness, what a game. Because 46th minute, literally the 46th minute, like this is within 60 seconds of the whistle blowing to start the second half. Alessia Russo puts the first goal back. And that's when you're like, oh, we are rolling. And from then on, it was just all Arsenal. And when Arsenal tied it up, it didn't even feel like it was going to go to extra time. Once they scored that third goal, it was Alessia Russo who scored the third goal to bring the aggregate 3-2. It never felt like Real Madrid were going to muster the energy to make a comeback. It just didn't. And we talked about how El Clasico might affect them coming into this game. Was it going to give them a boost? Was it going to be a hangover? It was a complete emotional hangover for Real Madrid.
I don't even think it was that. I think the fact that as soon as that first goal went in so close after the whistle for the second half, that we talk about it all the time, their heads dropped, their heads went down, and then the second goal happened, and they're like, right, we've lost our aggregate, and you either fight or you fly, and they just went. their heads just went, and then the third goal went in and you saw that they had nothing left.
I suppose I call that an emotional hangover, though, where I'm like, I do think that if things had gone differently the weekend before, or if the game El Clasico had just simply been at a different date, they might have had the fight to do so. But I do think the Emirates really I feel like you could feel it through the screen how the Emirates was bumping in there. It seemed like, oof, I wanted to be there badly. All right, let's talk about Chelsea City briefly, because we have to do so. I wish I could I should have pulled up the text messages. What did you say you thought would happen? Did you think you didn't think Chelsea was going to pull it off because Stamford Bridge has not necessarily been super kind to them in terms of being a home field. Is that correct?
I agree. That is what I said.
You agree with your own opinion that I'm saying back to you?
I agree that's what I said. Because sometimes you misquote me and make me sound stupider than I am. I agree with that's what I said.
But they did it. They pulled it out. And listen, if there was one team that was going to do it, it was going to be Chelsea, because they have the firepower and they have the scoring power. And what a crappy day to be a City fan, right?
Yeah, I was a bit concerned when Chelsea won, controversially or not, but at the weekend in the league. I was like, all right, this is either going to, again, it's going to be that thing, it's either going to inspire Man City to get vengeance, or it's going to fire Chelsea to be like, we can do this. And it was very much, it was probably one of the best Chelsea performances I've seen all season. And it was probably one of the worst Man City performances I've seen all season. Man City there was a couple of players that were great and had some great spark. I thought Kasper was pretty on it. You know, some of their defenders were quite on it, but I think that they've got a lot of youth that aren't there yet. They're getting there. They're growing. They're getting the experience, but getting your experience in a Champions League quarterfinal is not quite where you're supposed to get your experience. And I also thought some big players didn't show up. And I'm sorry, but Miedemar, you're one of them. I thought Miedemar had a shocking game that game and didn't turn up. And Chelsea did turn up.
It was 3-0 Chelsea at halftime.
Exactly.
And then that ended up being the final score. All right, before we move on from the quarterfinals and preview the semis, we just have to briefly touch on the fact that both teams from Germany were eliminated here in kind of a big way. Like, it's not like they really even had a chance by the end of it. The end aggregate between Lyon and Bayern was 6-1 Lyon, and for Barcelona Wolfsburg, you already mentioned it, 10-2 in favor of Barcelona. Look, these are two teams that are very storied franchises in the women's game, and specifically as well in Champions League. What's going on with the German league? Or is the German league fading, or is that just an overreaction? And hey, both two teams made it to the quarterfinals. That actually says something good about this league.
No, I do think there is something good about the league. And like you said, getting to the quarterfinals to German teams is fantastic. I do think that we are seeing a drop-off in talent going to the German league. We're seeing a lot of that talent come across. So we will talk about a certain player when we talk about the WSL, but she came to West Ham from Eintracht. She came from Frankfurt. And we're seeing a lot of talent coming out of Germany, and we're seeing a lot of talent, maybe their last run of things. You know, I'm looking at Wolfsburg, and their big star there was Pop, who very much is on the retirement run at the moment. You look at Bayern, they're two big names, obviously with George Stanway out with injury. Bayern's big names is Eriksson and Harder, who are fantastic players, but again, you feel like they're ramping down rather than ramping up. So maybe the German league needs to do a bit of a refresh into what they can entice up-and-coming players to stay in the German league.
All right, so let's do semifinal previews quickly. We have to. I do think... I'm not going to lie. I don't remember when we first made our brackets before quarterfinals even happened, like what both of us put in here. Maybe I could guess, but doesn't matter. Semifinals. Leg 1 will be played April 19th and April 20th. That's a lot sooner than you think, everybody. That's just 3 weeks out. April 19th, Arsenal will host Lyon, and April 20th, Barcelona will host Chelsea. If you're not excited for the Chelsea-Barcelona matchup again, I don't know what. Check your pulse, because I'm so pumped for this.
Can we talk about the controversy? Can we talk about the controversy first?
Yeah, sure. Because I didn't even know this existed. Is it stadium controversy because it's playing at Johan Cruyff?
It's the stadium controversy because obviously they have decided that they're playing it at the 6,000 seater, which means that Chelsea fans have a very small official allocation, because they will get put in the same corner that Wolfsburg got put in when I saw them. I personally think this is brilliant by Barcelona. Because,
I was going to say, this sounds intentional.
It's intentional because everybody's like, oh, well, the men are playing at Camp Nou and the rules are you have to have it for 48 hours. Well, that doesn't apply because Stamford Bridge is being used beforehand and for the return leg, and Chelsea women are still using it. I think it's intentional by Barcelona, and I think it's brilliant because I've been there. It is a fortress of Barcelona fans. Now, having been there, it's loud, it's crazy, it's all Barcelona. So I think it's brilliant, and I'm sorry it sucks for Chelsea fans that you aren't going to get that massive an allocation. But Barcelona have got to do what Barcelona can do to get that advantage. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, but I'm a little torn. I will say, because I very much understand that. And this is a freaking Champions League semifinal. And you're telling me you don't want to pack the big stadium?
Will they get 90,000 though? Because that's what Camp Nou holds. I don't think they will.
You don't?
No, on a Sunday.
Do you remember Barcelona?
On a Sunday. So you've got to think about people travelling over. They've got to try and get time off. I don't think on a Sunday, which is a weird time in any way to do it, will they get the 90,000. Especially if the men have been playing beforehand. And no, I don't think they will. I think that would dampen what they're trying to do.
But if you can get 50,000 people in a stadium for a Champions League semifinal, why wouldn't you? As a women's soccer fan, and let's just look at it from in the terms of growth of the sport. Why are we still playing in a 6,000 person stadium? Just ever. Why? Because
even Barcelona aren't getting bigger numbers than that right now. And so why go bigger? And this is an argument we're having in the WSL at the moment. Why go bigger if you can't sell it? Why would you have a half empty? We see it all the time with teams in the WSL. Why would you have a half empty stadium that there is no atmosphere, you can't bring noise, you can't do that, when you can pack out a 6,000 seat stadium, which is what will happen for this semi-final.
So when was it that Barcelona, they sold out Camp Nou? That was 91,553. It was a world record attendance.
That was against Wolfsburg, I believe.
That was against Wolfsburg in the second leg of a Champions League quarterfinal. And you're saying that you don't think they can sell out the first leg of a semifinal against Chelsea?
No.
I totally disagree. I think they can. This is how it is in women's football. If you market it well, you will sell it out.
But would it be Barcelona fans? Or would it just be a higher allocation of Chelsea fans? I just think they're being clever. And at this point, it's not about growing the game. It's about progressing to the Champions League final. So you do what you need to do.
I get it. I'm just saying, there's a small part of me that's very disappointed because I remember what that stadium looked like in that game against Wolfsburg. And I remember all of those fans, and they held up the signs, and it ended up reading more than empowerment. And that was special. And if you can do it once, you can do it again. Certainly if you can do it for a quarterfinal, you can do it for a semifinal. I don't know. I mean, obviously if you're given the option between a sold out 6,000 person stadium and a sold out 90,000 person stadium, you're going to choose the latter. But I get what you're saying. It's a hard sell potentially. Anyways, let's just quickly, let's not even do score lines. Let's not even do leg 1, leg 2. Who takes it?
Oh,
who advances?
Don't hate me.
Between Arsenal and Lyon, and who advances between Barcelona and Chelsea? Will we have another Barcelona-Lyon final, or will there be somebody new?
No. Is the simple answer.
Oh, wow.
And don't hate me, Chelsea fans. And it's not an agenda. Don't hate me, Arsenal fans. It's not an agenda. Having seen both quarterfinal legs and how they were played, I think Barcelona will take it. It won't be easy. It won't be a walkover. But Barcelona have more, if not equally matched firepower to Chelsea. And they have the experience. I think they'll take it. And Lyon, I think, will outclass Arsenal. Again, it won't be a walkover, but I just think they have that little bit something else.
I think one English team is going to the final, at least. I kind of think this might be Chelsea's year. And they have a coach that knows how to win this tournament. And that's what it is. It's a tournament, right? And as with tournaments, you can be the best team, but you also have to know how to play the tournament. And Chelsea now have a coach that has won the Champions League. that has played against Barcelona, that has beaten Barcelona. And that might be the difference maker right there. I think Chelsea take down Barcelona. I'm just going to say it. It's wild. And I will be in disbelief when it happens, if it happens. But I'm going to call Chelsea. The Arsenal-Lyon could go literally any direction. I think both teams are going to win their home leg, and it's just going to come down to who can put away more goals in their home leg. Please don't make me choose. Do I have to choose?
Yeah, you made me choose.
My heart says Arsenal. My head says Lyon. Maybe it'll be Lyon Chelsea in the final. I feel so dirty for saying that. I think it'll be I feel like it. But we both think Lyon, so that's interesting.
Yeah, just because again they've got the experience. You talk about wanting to know about winning it and stuff like that, and they've got players on that team that have won it before. You know, they've got the experience there. So not that Arsenal don't. I know that they've got players that have won it before, but I just feel like Lyon have got that. Something.
Notably, Arsenal has the home leg first and Barcelona has the home leg first, which means that second leg will be at Chelsea and then at Lyon. And that is, as we've seen, very important. Moving on to the WSL, and we have to talk about the result of the weekend as we near the end of this 24-25 campaign. And West Ham are on a freaking roll, Allie. My goodness. Sitting locked at 19 points with Everton, but ahead by 1 on goal differential. West Ham now sit in 7th place in the table of the WSL among all 12. And that is coming off a huge result. A draw against Chelsea this past weekend, 2-2. This is just the third time this season that Chelsea have dropped points. They're still undefeated, mind you, but they have 3 draws on the season now. Were you okay? This happened on Sunday. Were you okay on Sunday?
No, I was not. So also, quick things is West Ham are the first team to take points off them at home. The other 2 draws came from away matches, and it's the first time Chelsea have given up a 2-0 lead since 2018.
Yeah, because I will say, I did check the score. It was 2-0 Chelsea, and I was like, I'm not going to turn it on.
I know. Well, that's it, right? So,
whoops, big whoopsie doodles.
So for UK listeners, you will know it was Mother's Day, and I'd had a great meal with my parents, and I was like, Mom, can I watch the West Ham Chelsea game? And she was like, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that to yourself? And then we watched it, and we went 2-0 down within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And Mom was like, well, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know,
we mentioned it's the third team to take points off Chelsea. The other 2 were Leicester and Brighton. I just think that's very interesting if we're sitting here looking at Chelsea at the top of the table. And it wasn't Arsenal that took points off of them. It wasn't United. It wasn't City. It was West Ham, Brighton, and Leicester City.
Do we think that certain teams have been underestimated? No, I don't want to go down that route.
But let's not go that far. I will put my hands up and say I certainly underestimated West Ham this season, for sure.
Everybody did, because everybody had us as relegation fodder. Like, I would say that most of the major outlets...
you understand why, too.
I do, but at the same time, I was like, guys, give us a chance. But every season, we're considered relegation fodder. And, like, this year, we could actually have our points record, so...
Yeah. Well, every other season, you were just barely skating by. But what's been going right for West Ham? Because it's not just been this result. West Ham have really had, as you mentioned, this might be the points record for West Ham women. What's been going right this year?
So, to be honest, it's been what's been going right since January. Mm-hmm. So we had a very ropey start to the season, I'll admit. You know, we were down in the relegation battle. We were 11th coming up at Christmas. And then from January, we've managed to really solidify our defence, which was what was killing us because we couldn't defend to save our lives, and we couldn't defend set pieces to save our lives, and we still need to work on that. But you watch this Chelsea game, they had a lot of opportunities. You know, Cuthbert rattled that crossbar, but we got a lot of bodies back, and we're getting better at getting bodies back and then pop up for the goal. And so our last 3 games were against Man City, Tottenham and Chelsea, and we were predicted to get 0 points, nil points, out of those 3 games, and we got 5. So we had 2 draws and a win against Tottenham. Like, something is going quite right, and we are building and we are growing, and it was fantastic. And it was, for this particular game, obviously Chelsea went 2-0 up. within 20 minutes. And it was all them. They had 12 shots and 45 touches in the opposition area compared to West Ham's 1 shot and 5 touches in the opposition area at 40 minutes. But we talk about it all the time. The most dangerous time to score or concede is right before halftime, and that's exactly what West Ham did. Shakira Martinez, our German superstar.
She's been incredible.
Yeah, you just look at the goal she scored against Arsenal, even though we went on to lose that game. She's just phenomenal. Popped up, brilliant assist by our Japanese player, Ueki, and right past Bright, straight through Hannah Hampton to make it 2-1. And I think that's where the belief came for West Ham. And you can talk about the fact that, it was mentioned a lot that Chelsea are tired because they have played a lot. They have played a lot of games.
It's true. I mean, but this is why it's so hard to win everything, is because you get tired. These are human players.
Yeah, literally, Bompasta said that she took off Bright and Cuthbert at halftime because they were fatigued. And
I mean, they just played on Wednesday. So, and a huge game at that. So, understandably so.
Thursday even. So, yeah, so that would be...
Thursday even, my bad.
So, yeah, but that also then worked in West Ham's favour because for the second goal, you watch it, Martinez, Bright probably would have got to that or would have not been... Martinez wouldn't have been able to shake her as easily as she shook Lawrence to get into that position for a... Like, she managed to get a spin on a header. How do you get a spin on a header?
Yeah. Good question. Well, let's talk about what this means, because this means a lot of things for the table. It also means something for West Ham, which I'm guessing is that maybe the calls for the manager will cease. But also, let's look at the table. Chelsea are now just 6 points clear of Arsenal and United. It still feels like a far cry for either Arsenal or United because there's, 4 games left?
Yeah, it's 4 games left, and Arsenal and Man United have to play each other. And I saw a great moment where somebody was like, it's 6, but it was an Arsenal fan. It was like, 6 points, my delusion is real, that it could possibly happen.
It's true, it could. It's probably not going to, because that would entail Chelsea dropping 2 games out of their last 4. However, one of those games will be against United, so United could really help themselves.
Yeah.
Or help Arsenal, depending on how the result of the head-to-head Arsenal and United goes. I don't think it means much for the table, to be totally frank, either at the top or the bottom. We're still kind of sitting here like Chelsea do seem to be the projected winners, and Crystal Palace do seem to be the projected relegators, especially because Aston Villa did win this past weekend.
Yeah, Aston Villa got a great win against Liverpool this weekend, so I think that's pretty much confirmed their safety now, unless something massively goes wrong, which it still could, but I do think, unfortunately, it does mean that Crystal Palace is going to go down. What I do think is that this means is that there's something can kick on. It's now not, I think, a foregone conclusion that the traditional top 4 clubs will beat every team below the top 4, because you look at our home thing, we lost them 5-0 at home, and so I think that's what it means, is the fact that we're starting to kick on, and it's not just us. We're seeing it with Everton, we're seeing it with Brighton, we're seeing it with other teams, that they are actually challenging for top 5, top 4, which can only grow their game because it means investment. It means players will come, because it's like you could be that missing piece that gets top 3, top 2, that does challenge a Chelsea. So I think it means a lot of good things for the league.
Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world.
To Scotland, and Hibs remain top of the league with 60 points after their win against Motherwell this weekend. Rangers are hot on their tail with their win over Hearts. Glasgow City sit in 3rd after their win over Celtic.
Over to Spain, Barcelona are 4 points clear of the table and back to winning ways this weekend. Real Madrid keep the pressure on with their win as well. However, Atletico Madrid remain in 3rd, trailing 2nd place by 17 points.
To Italy, and Juve remain top of the league despite their loss to 2nd place Inter Milan. Roma keep challenging those top 2, however, with their win against Fiorentina.
And finally to France, Lyon keep their 10-point cushion after their 4-0 win over Fleury 91. Second place PSG keep the pressure on with their win, but third place Paris FC dropped this weekend, meaning their claim on the third Champions League spot is becoming more precarious.
Over to the other side of the pond, and we are talking NWSL. It is only the beginning of the season. There has literally been about 3 matches, but we are starting to see the teams rising and the teams falling. And is it going to be another battle of the undefeated teams yet again? Casey and Orlando.
I mean, it absolutely is. They're now the 2 undefeated teams at the top. Once again, 3 wins each, 0 losses each. The only 2 teams with 3 wins. Actually, well, technically, let's see. Technically, they aren't the only undefeated teams. Technically, Angel City sit with them as another undefeated team, but they've got 1 win and 2 draws. And that is very different than 3 wins and 0 losses. Washington Spirit are certainly still contenders. I do see them kind of pushing the envelope and trying. I see them as, the third place team that is just chasing and trying to keep up with those 2 teams. They also are a team that's regaining players back from injury. So I think that they will just continue to grow and become better. So I do see them as that team. Weirdly enough, if you look at the table right now and you look at how teams are playing, San Diego Wave just played a great game against Orlando. So, do I see them sitting, locked at third with Washington? No. But for how they played against Orlando, they seem like a team that could shock anybody on any day, which is, I think is frankly pretty freaking fascinating. They've just made huge strides since game 1. I was very hard on them after their first game, and they looked like a completely different team this past weekend. And it's just been a fascinating study of Jonas Eidevall in the NWSL so far.
So the other big thing that's come out of this season is the fact that people were concerned that it would be less competitive because the draft has been eliminated, because many people said that was what got Gotham their title, was because they managed to pick up well in the draft. Orlando being at the bottom of the table, they picked up really well with the draft, and that got them their double. They did the double header. From your very seasoned opinion, is the NWSL less competitive? Because that was always your selling point, was that anybody can beat anybody on any given day. Is that still true?
I mean, it is still true. It's certainly still true. Of course, it's early on. We've only had 1 off season without the draft. So that's not really enough to completely influence and shift the entire table. So really, it's too early to tell, both in terms of how many off seasons we've had and also in terms of, we've had 3 games in this specific season. We need a couple of off seasons without the draft to really see if there is going to be that divide happening that we see in the WSL, or we've seen historically in the WSL, where it becomes a league where not anybody could beat anybody. I still think this is a league where anybody can beat anybody. Chicago might be giving us a run for our money this year on that one, but there's always been, that lone team at the bottom. It was Gotham one year, it's Chicago this year. It still certainly is a league where anybody can beat anybody. The table is really interesting right now. The teams have essentially divided themselves into a top, middle, and bottom echelon already, but the middle of the table is still massive. And based on what we're seeing, I think there's still going to be that classic NWSL battle with a ton of middle of the table teams all vying for those last 2 or 3 playoff spots. There's 5 teams that are 1-1-1 right now after 3 games, and I think that says quite a lot.
Speaking of what says quite a lot, we did our preseason predictions. I know you and Tim went into very in-depth about what you felt each team was going to do. Has anybody gone really against your predictions?
A few teams. I mean, Gotham, we didn't expect them to be great, but I didn't expect them to have 0 wins after 3 games. They've 2 draws and a loss, so it's not like they're 0-3, but they have not won a game. I expected them to win against Seattle. They drew. Similarly, North Carolina, 0 wins so far. They're also 2 draws and 1 loss, just like Gotham. They also lost to Seattle. Seattle gave them their 1 loss. So I'll say Seattle certainly surprising me. I did not expect them to be this high.
I was going to say Seattle are doing better. I was going to say Seattle are doing better than I thought because I had them down the bottom with Chicago.
Very much so. Yeah. They're 1-1-1. They're one of those teams that's sitting right in the middle of the pack. 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. And already talked about San Diego. They've been very surprising to me this year. They're such a hilarious, like, fun case study, in my opinion, because they were such a big question mark coming into this year. And I thought that question mark would result in not great results. And they started poorly. And so far, game to game to game, they have possibly grown the most on a game to game to game basis in these 3 games than any other team. So, you know, based on how they've played against Orlando, what we see that they can do, they've been surprising to me.
I think Angel City is probably my biggest surprise at the moment because, again, I had them pegged as like missing out on the playoffs, being the lower half of the table based on what we've seen, and actually their games have actually been more surprising to me, and they've actually seemed to have picked up a little bit. I don't know if it's the press effect or what, but there is something happening with Angel City that I'm like, all right, let's see if you can keep this going for the rest of the season.
2 draws. They got their first win this past weekend against Seattle, which is certainly saying something. I mean, mentioned Seattle handed North Carolina their first loss, and they drew with Gotham. I will say Bay FC have been more disappointing to me as well. The only bright spot right now in Bay FC are their rookies. And I've said on this podcast, I've said everywhere I can say it before this season started, that Bay FC had the best offseason in terms of recruiting out of college. And their rookie class was phenomenal. And they have proven game in and game out so far this season that is correct. Carly Lima and Taylor Huff have been outstanding. And they have been, in my opinion, really the sole bright spots for Bay FC so far this year, but they have been an absolute joy to watch.
And then any particular highlight this weekend, because I think my highlight comes from Portland twice.
Because of Becky?
But one is the Becky.
Yeah.
Because having Becky back, because that was great, because we all love the Salvin.
Because it's always fun to see Becky.
It's always fun to see Becky. And then the second one was, if you haven't seen it, the interview clip with Mackenzie Arnold.
Oh, I have not seen this. She made a great stop. She made a great penalty kick stop, though.
No, she actually had a really good game for Portland, which, you know, take back some of the criticism I've had. But there's a bit where they do the whole going live from the studio, and they gave her headphones, and Mac Arnold wears hearing aids because she's going deaf, but doesn't wear them to play. So literally they gave her the headphones, and she literally goes, I can't hear shit.
Like live on air.
Live on air. It was like, check the clip out. It's hilarious.
That's
I was like,
so funny. We have international break coming up next week. Whoop whoop. And then the NWSL will return. Many games that I think are going to be pretty fascinating to watch. Namely, we just mentioned how San Diego played against Orlando, which was very well. They then have to turn around and play the other the other 3-0 team, the Kansas City Current. So they'll host the Current for their first game back from international break. That will certainly be an interesting one. I think a Utah-Portland game could actually be really fun and interesting. Completely different teams. I doubt it would be interesting to go back and see if there's any players on either of these teams right now that played in that historic Portland-Utah game with Sonnet, Harand, A-Rod, that whole thing. I don't know.
You love that game. Like, if you can reference that game, you will reference that game.
That was a historic moment in time. I remember exactly where I was, and I remember thinking to myself, I can't believe I have the good fortune of seeing this go down live, because it was incredible. I think anybody who watched that game live, it's imprinted in our brains. And if you didn't, you're like, I don't know what the hell everybody's talking about right now. It's not that big of a
Literally
deal.
Go onto our Twitter feed. You will find that Sarah's retweeted it many times.
I posted it as much as I can, which is worth following us for that alone.
Gotham, North Carolina Courage, because that can either be a game of mediocrity or it's going to be somebody's going to step it up.
It also, frankly, it gets kind of chippy. Anytime Washington or Gotham play, or North Carolina and Gotham play, it gets to be kind of chippy. So I think it'll be a good one too.
Yeah, so that's my highlight for that one.
I would also throw in Houston, Angel City. I think that's going to end up being a pretty fun end-to-end game, if you will.
So some good games coming up after international break.
Certainly. But first, international break, Allie. The U.S. women's national team is playing 2 games against Brazil. That'll be this Saturday, April 5th. They will host Brazil, and then Tuesday, April 8th. Allie, what do the Lionesses have on the docket?
The Lionesses are playing their third and fourth match in the Nations League, and they're both against Belgium. They will be hosting Belgium this Friday. That is Friday the 4th. It will be in Bristol. Kickoff is 8 o'clock GMT. You can work out your conversions from there. And then they are playing Belgium again on Tuesday the 8th, and that will be in Belgium, which will be again 8:30 local time. Again, you can work out your conversions.
All right, and that is it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show. Reminder, you can always head to our Patreon for extra content and check us out there. That's patreon.com/thewoso show. And for us here, I've been Allie. I haven't been Allie. For us here, I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Mike, you should keep that in. That was funny.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.